Hello and welcome to another edition of Never Fail Ale. Yes, today we're actually going to do something a little different. On this occasion, I'm actually going to review a beer that I have actually got on the Perfect Draft Machine. So yes, that is the plan of action for today's episode. But before we get to it, what I was going to actually discuss with you is not long ago, I'll say not long ago, probably a couple of weeks ago maybe, I received the beer magazine from Camera. So I would be part of the campaign for Ale. I think it's really important, especially because the fact that I am such a cask ale fan, and as I've mentioned in the previous episode, I think it's really important to try and push home how important cask ale is, and ultimately how much you can actually enjoy ale. Obviously, not necessarily just cask ale, but ale in general. I think it's really important to be a part of Camera, and I, for one, am a member. But I did want to just briefly discuss with you the piece. Well, it actually does state it here. So I don't know if you can see there. So, seeking UNESCO recognition for a British institution. So I am going to go into this in greater detail on the next episode. But I was hoping potentially people could drop in a comment on how they feel about us as a nation trying to put Britain's cask beer culture in for UNESCO recognition. So I just wanted to just quickly read you a section of this magazine because it's within the first couple of pages, and it says here, in December last year, the Japan Sake Makers Association announced that the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO for short, has or had officially recognised traditional knowledge and skills of sake making in Japan as an intangible cultural heritage. So it's kind of just giving you a bit of an idea of the sort of work that UNESCO does. And I have spoken to a couple of people ever so briefly on this in the past, just as regards to the schools of thought, how people feel about it. And it does tend to kind of divide a few people. So there's a school of thought there in terms of, yes, giving cask ale UNESCO heritage will help it kind of move forward in the future and protect its heritage status. Whereas another school of thought would be the fact that if you do give cask ale UNESCO status, is it then going to be more difficult for brewers to actually produce cask ale in terms of its quality level? Will ingredients start to go up in price? Well, then the brewers have to try and pass that increase down to the consumer when, let's face it, a pint of ale isn't the cheapest at the moment. I, for one, remember the days when you used to be able to go to a good cask ale pub on a Wednesday, for instance, and get it for £2 a pint. Those days are long gone now. But yeah, there's a school of thought there just in terms of whether it's the right thing to do. But I will get into the subject point more so in the next episode. But yeah, pop a comment on this particular episode and just let me know what you think, and then it'll be good to bring your points up on the next episode. So yes, today the idea is to look at one of the kegs that is available with the Philips Perfect Draft Machine. So I've had the Perfect Draft Machine now for a number of years, and there's a number of kegs that I've tried. Some I've been really impressed with, others not so much. But today I'm going to taste test the Adnams Brewery Ghost Ship. I'll just pop Adnams link, logo up just so you can take a look at it. Now, the thing I have noticed with the Perfect Draft machine is you can go on their website, Perfect Draft's website, and it'll give you a bit of an idea just in terms of the beer's perfect temperature. Now, I'm not lucky enough to own one of their new models just yet, because they do have the Perfect Draft Pro, which I do certainly want to get eventually, but I've still got the original model where it's just one set temperature. And what I always do with my particular kegs is pop them in the fridge beforehand, so a bit of pre-cooling, 24 to 48 hours before, and then pop it in the Perfect Draft machine to let it cool down. Now, with the Adnams Go Ship, it states on the Perfect Draft website that the perfect temperature is at 5 degrees. Now, the system itself now is actually sitting at 5 degrees, but what I have noticed is it doesn't matter whether it states on the website the perfect temperature is at 5 degrees or whether it says it's between 7 and 10 degrees. What I've always noticed is if you don't allow the beer to go down to the 3 degree mark, which is the lowest set point on the Perfect Draft machine that I have, it always pours really foamy. So what I tend to do, which kind of feels counterintuitive, is allow the keg to get down to the 3 degrees set point, pour the beer, and then allow it then to get to the temperature that Perfect Draft suggest. I always just find that it pours much better that way. So it's currently sitting at 5 degrees. So I'm going to wait just a little while, allow the keg to get down to 3, pour it, wait a little while longer to get back up to 5 degrees. Madness, I know, and we'll see how we get on. So just as we wait for the Ghost Ship to get down to that 3 degree set point, just thought I'd go through the information that Adnams have on their website. And you can go on their website and there's a number of sections on there. I've just clicked on their About Us section. It says 150 years and counting. So it was established in 1872. So I'm just trying to think quick maths. That would have made their 150th birthday in 2022. Is that right? Somebody will no doubt quickly do that calculation for me and pop it in the comments. But it goes on to say in 1872, two brothers, George and Ernest Adnams, took a leap that many take today. They started a brewery. Here we are 150 years later, celebrating, and Adnams is still going strong. They would no doubt be proud to see it. And it just goes on to say, we are grateful that when George and Ernest set out to find a business to invest in, they settled upon Southwold. So that's where the Adnam Brewery is based. Our seaside home in Suffolk has been our anchor. It has helped frame our actions and our vision for the future. It gave us a sense of belonging as well as a desire to protect our local environment and to give something back to our communities. So yeah, it's quite nice the fact that they've put on there as regards to, it's not all just about brewing. They want to look after their local community as well, which is great. So I'm going to go on to their tasting notes now for the Ghost Ship. And I'm going to see what they say just in terms of how the beer should taste, because I know I've mentioned before, I feel like it's quite subjective. So when you taste a beer for the very first time, the person to my left may very well feel that it's a different taste to myself. Yeah, so I do think it is quite subjective. Although, having said that, obviously, breweries do try and really kind of get their tasting notes right in terms of, because then when you purchase a beer based on a tasting note, it is, of course, as close to that as they can possibly get. So let's see. So it actually says here that it's their best-selling beer. So it goes on to say our best-selling beer is inspired by tall tales of ghostly ships that haunted the shores of Wallerswick. Enjoy whispers of aromatic elderflower, bold citrus, and gooseberry flavours with hints of warming rye spice. So to me, it's a bit of a mixture there of what you would expect a bold citra ale to be. Kind of, if you look in terms of like seasonal, you tend to think citra as in, quite a summer drink. But then with the fact that it's got the way they've written there, hints of warming rye spice, it kind of takes you in then towards the kind of autumn and autumnal sort of seasons. And it goes and say Ghost Ship is a 4.5 pale ale, and it's brewed with rye crystal and caramalts, which add depth and Moorish biscuity hints with a blend of Citra and American and UK hop varieties. And it goes on to say provide Ghost Ship's bold citrus flavours of lemon and lime, aromatic elderflower notes, and that wonderful hoppy finish. So I'm glad to say that the machine has now reached its 3-degree set point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the Ghost Ship, and we're going to take a look at it and how it pours. And then, like I say, there is method in the madness for me, but I am going to leave it to one side just for a little while, allow it to go up a couple of degrees in temperature, and then really try the beer at its 5-degree suggested temperature. So let's give the Ghost Ship a pour. So as you can see, it's very, very lively, actually coming out of the keg itself. So I'm going to leave it just for a couple of minutes just to settle, and then we'll see what it's like just in terms of its colourways, and then obviously giving it a little smell. You'll see what I mean by it being lively. Look at that. What a big head. Once again, being a glass snob, of course it had to be a Ghost Ship glass. And I like the fact that it says on the side here, seen in the moonlight, spoken in the whispers. And it goes on to say there are ghost ships along Suffolk shore. I do like the detail in terms of the glass. Very, very good. So yes, what I'm going to do is, you can see the lovely, lovely colour. Just let the shot of the light shine through there. And I'm just going to set it down to one side, let it warm up a touch, and then literally just give it a squirt from the pump, and then it'll be good to go to taste. You can really smell that, like the elderflower though, already. Very, very fruity, that's for sure. But yes, I'm going to set it down and give it a taste in a little while. Hooray! It's now time to taste. So I'm gonna suggest it has got to that 5-degree suggested temperature point through perfect draft, because I've left it just a little while. Obviously from that 3 degrees up to 5 degrees, it's not going to take that long really. So I'm just going to give it a quick squirt from the pump just to add to its head, and then we're going to give it a taste. Back in a mo. Here it is. Not a bad looking pint, to be fair. So once again, just giving it a bit of a sniff there. It does smell very, very fruity, and it's certainly, to me, yeah, it just resonates summer with me. So for me, it is definitely a summer ale. But then, having said that, I always, whenever I'm trying a Citra, I always tend to think of kind of summer and obviously sunshine, blue skies, and then ultimately, when you start getting into your bitters, more autumn, winter. For me, anyway. And mild May. Don't know whether you've heard of it before, but yeah, it tends to be when brewers really enjoy brewing a mild, and they do tend to, like pubs in general, do tend to push mild in May, which is really good to see. So yes, let's give the Ghost Ship a taste. Yeah, so straight away, to me, you can really taste that elderflower. And like there's a bit of a kick there in the aftertaste that I don't necessarily always enjoy. Depends really for me on the ale itself. Sometimes I feel like an ale lends itself to like a bit of a kick towards the back of the throat. Am I enjoying it in this? Give it another go. Yeah, it's funny because for me, the Ghost Ship, when you first take a sip, the flavours don't necessarily burst through. But interestingly, as you let it linger, that's kind of when the citra and the elderflower. I don't know whether there's necessarily any biscuit notes there for me. So it's interesting. Adnams tasted notes that they do describe it as biscuity. I'm sure that's what they said. Let me just double check to make sure I'm not talking rubbish. Yeah, well, biscuity hints. So I suppose that's very different. A hint of biscuit is very different to kind of heavily biscuity, I suppose. So I kind of understand where they're going with that. And then yes, it is very, very hoppy. So it is a nice, clean, crisp taste. I do definitely enjoy it. Moorish, absolutely. It does make you want to keep coming for more, coming back for more. But yeah, for me, it's interesting the fact that when you do take that first sip, the flavours don't necessarily come through, but then the longer you leave it, the more it does kind of settle on the tongue. And then, like I say, it's very much a nice kick towards the back of the throat. So yeah, that is the Adnams Ghost Ship. And do you know what? Established, I'm just reading here at the back of the glass, established in 1872. fair play to them. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall look forward to seeing you on the next episode.